Back to domestic politics now, as Democratic lawmakers are firing back at President Trump's decision not to release what is called the Democratic memo. The White House citing security concerns. This comes a week after President Trump released the GOP memo on Russian interference. Let's bring in our fair and balanced political panel, GOP strategist Sean Noble and former EPA liaison for the Obama administration, Dan Cannon. And gentlemen, nice to see you as always. Appreciate it.
Likewise.
Good to see you, Leland.
Dan, start with you on this. We had Bob Driscoll on earlier from the DOJ, who said there seems to be a little bit more transparency coming, at least from Republican congressmen. Republican congressmen voted to release the Democratic memo. Democratic congressmen didn't vote to release the Republican memo. Fair?
Well, I did see that clip, Leland. I don't think that's exactly what the guest was saying, as I read it at least. My take is what's very obvious is the president.
I think that's actually exactly what he said, but go ahead.
Well, my take is that the hypocrisy is pretty clear on the part of the president. He's now relying on privately spoken concerns on sources and methods from the DOJ, which are not public for this process, where he did not, with the partisan party line vote release memo by Devin Nunes a week and a half ago. But I'm less concerned, frankly, about the hypocrisy. I do think that matters to folks. It should matter to all of us at some level. I'm more concerned with the pattern of the president continuing to find ways to put his thumb on the scale of the investigation and obstruct at every level he can to cover himself or to impugn the motives in whatever way, shape, or form he's able to. And that is a real concern here, because we're now just 8 or 9 months away from the next election. We know for a fact that Russians have interfered with our election process. We know they're trying to again, and yet we have a president who seems to not want to even acknowledge that basic fact and distract from all those problems. That's my big concern.
Sean, do you view this as a distraction by the president, or do you take him at his word that he's happy to declassify the Democratic memo so long as it's sufficiently vague, albeit spun perhaps, like the Republican memo?
Well, I think that it's clear. I mean, the proof will be in the pudding when they take the sensitive information out that they shouldn't have put in there in the first place, which they did on purpose. They staged this. This is a setup. He will release the memo. I mean, there's no question in my mind about it, because he is a transparent president, and he's not putting the thumb on the scale. I think the fascinating thing to me about this is that the Democrats were actively involved, using the previous administration, the institutions of government, to try to influence the outcome of an election. The Russians have been trying to do this since the 1960s, and the Democrats are now, oh my gosh, the Russians are trying to, they've been meddling in American politics for more of my lifetime.
That's for sure. Dan, I know you have a lot you want to react to there. I'm going to let you do that, but I'm going to ask you this question first. Do you believe what Sean said, that this certainly is a lot better for the Democrats to be sort of have something to talk about and say that President Trump is holding this memo up? They could have written a memo that was equally vague, that didn't have any sources and methods in it. Staged or not staged?
We don't. To be honest, we don't know. I haven't seen the memo. Sean has not seen the memo. We don't know what redactions the president's talking about. Here's a couple things we do know. We know the president didn't read the first memo. I doubt he read the second memo, partly because he criticized it as being too long, which is not really a national security criticism. And we know that DOJ publicly said about the first memo it would be reckless to release this. They have not publicly said that about the second memo. So we just simply don't know. And look, I will say this, Leland. If there needs to be redactions, fine. Get them over there, get it redacted, put it back out there. We have no problem with that, but there should be a clear and consistent process on the part of the government and the president.
Well, you make a point about clear and consistent. It seems as though there's a clear and consistent process, at least in the House, of voting to release both memos, at least by Republicans in the House. As you point out, the president has made this much more about the Russia investigation, the Mueller investigation, than anything else. And the president just tweeted this in the past couple of minutes. My view is that not only has Trump been vindicated in the last several weeks about the mishandling of the dossier and the lies about the Clinton DNC dossier, it shows that he's been victimized. He's been victimized by the Obama administration. We're using all sorts of agencies, not just the FBI and DOJ, now the State Department, to dig up dirt on him. In the days leading up to the election, Comey had conversations with Donald Trump, which I don't believe were accurate. He leaked information, parentheses, corrupt. This is the president tweeting what appears to be a quote from Tom Fenton of Judicial Watch, who was on this channel earlier. Dan, I'll let you respond first. Sean, you'll get the last word.
This president is trying in every way he can to impugn the motives of career civil servants, Republicans, Democrats, independent prosecutors, because they're investigating him. I would much rather he focus on the full weight of force of the federal government.
Dan, at least we can agree that this has certainly evolved. The Democratic talking points of a year ago, that there was this dossier and President Trump was in the pocket of the Russians and on and on and on, and James Comey was lily white. A lot of those have certainly had to change, if not been blown out of the water.
Look, the dossier is one bit of evidence. There was Papadopoulos speaking to Australian foreign agents after being contacted by the Russians, which is a bigger part of the evidence the FBI acted upon. My point is this. I don't know if Donald Trump or the campaign or anyone in that world actually colluded with Russia. We do know that Russia meddled the election, and I would much prefer this administration focus on stopping that. The fact that they are not does beg the question about collusion, but I would love this investigation to proceed fully and forcefully.
Last word, is this a winning strategy for the president, or should he sort of shift and tact over to what Dan is saying of just attacking the Russians outright?
Well, I think that we have to get this resolved, get the memo resolved. It's kind of a sideshow. Let the Mueller investigation take its course. And then I think that there is evidence that there's actions going on in the Justice Department, other places, State Department, to make sure that Russians are minimized in how they meddle in our elections. Remember, they have meddled in our politics for decades. They're not going to stop, but we can continue to work to keep them at bay, and I think that this administration is doing that.
Well, and certainly, as we have heard, even from the CIA chief, that they are currently working, the Russians that are, trying to influence the 2018 elections. Yeah. Gentlemen, appreciate you both being here. Busy news day for sure, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Leland.
Glad to be here.